Chapter 8 The Ways of Perpetuation. Bethany's plane landed, and she made her way to the hotel. She had exchanged only pleasantries with John, and accepted that the conversation was merely chit-chat on the flight. She attended a meeting regarding her business trip and then dined at the restaurant in the hotel. She returned to her room, confident that her performance in the first round of meetings conveyed the ideas relating to production well, and reflected, after unpacking, while she prepared for bed. She thought how strange it was that she was granted the opportunity to travel, that she was the one designated with the portents of personality to communicate ideas that were representative of the company's pursued business. A clear thought regarding the coincidence or structured incident of her conversation on the plane and the understanding of her station as a transmitter of ideas was entertained in her mind as she drifted into a restful sleep. And her dream, as she slept, was there, and her vision was her own. She saw a version of her own frame of vision, as though she were still peering through her eyes, yet she knew that her eyelids were closed, and she was cognizant that she was asleep. Her sight fell upon a resplendent mountain view, where the snow-capped peaks and crags of the slope were hazed with a rosy pink hue as the light from a setting sun gently lingered in prisms of the crystallized water. She would notice the reflection of the mountain in the lake set before her, and the abundance of flowers that swayed gently in a breeze that felt warm to her. She heard someone call to her, and turned to see an image of her father walk towards her. She felt no sadness or relief. There was nothing out of the ordinary in her mind's eye as she saw her father approach. He was as she chose to remember him, physically fit in his late 30s to mid-40s, barely any gray in his hair and minimal wrinkles on his face, with little notice to his presence, as though he was present with her. She regarded his features, and once he was closer, she greeted him. "Hey, Dad," she said, looking back at the mountain view. "Hey, Beth," he replied with a familiar tone, using a diminutive of her name that she was accustomed to hearing spoken by his voice. "I seem to recall you being enamored by visions of beauty, the larger-than-life, bordering on the sublime views. Others would shy away from them, but you always seemed to find comfort in them." "It reminds me of my size in the world," she said, looking at the wisps of snow drifting from the peaks, "and helps me know who I am." She looked down from the sight and thought. "I'm dreaming this," she looked at him, "aren't I?" "Yes," he said with a comforting tone meant to reassure her, "and I would be flattered that I am still so thought of by you, even after—" He trailed off. "If you're here in my dream, then you didn't really die," she said. "Along those lines are where your thoughts are guiding you," he said. "And you always were so very smart." "But you're not really here," she said, her tone becoming morose. He sighed. "Well, that's up to your decision." He started walking along the waterside, and she walked along with him. You could easily dream me into whatever person you want. Someone you know, someone you don't know. I could even be an image of yourself, but it stands to reason that you chose my image because of how you remember me and my way of being. So, in a manner of speaking, he stopped walking. I am here with you and survive through you, through your memory of me. She experienced a comfort that secured her thoughts, and with a balance of thought she spoke. So if I choose to keep your memory, to keep you alive through me, why would I be dreaming about you? He answered with a smile she was familiar with, letting her know that her question was for her to answer. She looked away to the mountain again. Maybe you want to know something that you already know, but want to attribute to something other than you, he said. Maybe you can ask me, and I can let you tell you what you want to know. She looked back to his image. Tell me, she said, what is the point of life? What is the point of any structure in life? Life is to exist with little apprehension for the components which create that existence, he replied. We live because we live, and that is the first cycle of the structure in life, if you can define life as structured. He looked at the mountain and took a deep breath. He continued when he looked at her. Everything that lives is striving for the continuity of the diverse facets of the world through perpetuation, not an unchanging oneness. A perpetual world consisting of variation in every generational replication through time. If that is the case, it seems that life is geared toward perpetuation and solely upon the notion of reproduction, she said. Reproduction, he said, reminds one of the biological aspect and the genetic replication as it occurs from parent to child. But there is the other aspect of biological reproduction that takes a bit more effort to perform during life. He started walking again, and she walked with him. The communication experienced in life, all that which we receive shapes ourselves. And that is why teaching is considered a noble profession, because it enhances the larger self through evocation of the intellect of others, the self comprised of individual selves, much like the body consists of cells. The genetic means of reproduction may have more legality attached to it, but both are important in the spectrum of perpetuation in life. The transmission of ideas is a means of perpetuation, and those who transmit ideas through their own volition receive a subtle attribution by the one who receives the transmission. That seems complicated and confusing, Bethany said. Perhaps for a moment, he said. But if you can understand how I am partially reincarnated through you, and his image shifted and wavered, reforming itself into an image of John from the plane ride, you can see how you attribute this line of thinking to persons other than yourself and allow them portions of your memory and to be living vicariously through you. The image shifted again, and Alice was speaking to her. And similar, subtle qualities of life that you pick up from others are also given by you to others, and you are extended into life beyond your perception of the world through them. The image wavered once more and changed again, and Monica spoke. Regardless of how seemingly insignificant or trite a momentary concern appears to be to our perception, it is the vehicle through which we enable ourselves a perpetual course of life through others. The image changed back into her father, who smiled at her as they stood in silence. "I miss you, Dad," she said. "I know," he replied. "But please take solace in how lucky we are that I am survived by you and that you miss me." She sighed and hugged the image, taking with her the feeling of the embrace as she drifted from the dream into the waking world awaiting her.